Welcome, and happy Valentine's Day, everyone. Welcome to the Sci-Fi Queens podcast, where we celebrate all things sci-fi, especially the women in the sci-fi world. If you are new here, we ask that you hit that subscribe and notification bell so you know when our next show is coming up. We really would appreciate it. If you want to support our channel, check out our website that's scrolling at the bottom of the page. It has information on the queens, our shows, and our merch store is linked to that as well. My name is your host. My name is Nita, and joining me tonight is my co-host Sarah, the Queen of Darkness, and our very special guest Rose, our wonderful cosplayer and Star Trek fan here. She's
Thank
Captain
you.
Rose, by the way. How are you doing, Rose?
Good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. And
Thank you for
Sarah, how
having
are
me.
you doing?
Doing okay.
Doing good, doing good.
Yep.
Well, Rose, you are always welcome here at the Sci-Fi
Thanks.
Queens. And tonight we are going to do something a little different in honor of our romance theme. And we are going to continue celebrating Black History Month today as well. Sarah's bringing you an awesome scientist. I'm bringing you an awesome book review. We're going to also have some amazing podcast recommendations later on in the show. But tonight we're going to start with some Star Trek romances. So let's get right into it. And we can't talk about romances or celebrate Black History Month without talking about the infamous Kirk and Uhura kiss that changed television forever. Rose, have you watched the episode that this kiss occurred?
I have watched it. I watched it when I was pretty young, actually, in
Mhm.
probably the late 80s, early 90s. And I don't remember it being a big thing, seeing it because it was just, yeah, okay. I didn't learn about kind of the groundbreaking history of it until a little bit later. And it was like, what? Why was that such a big deal? Like, it didn't
Exactly.
I didn't understand why it was a big deal then, but then as I
Mhm.
got older and looking back and learning more about it, it was like, wow, that really was like such an amazing thing for them to do and to show and to just go for it. And it just, I think, is the start of a long line of Trek breaking barriers.
Yes, and one of the things we have to know about this Kirk and Uhura kiss was that Gene Roddenberry and Lucille Ball fought for this episode to be exactly as the episode airs today, even in, when you do your repeat watch, because the executives said, "Oh, the world isn't ready to see an interracial kiss." Because it had never been done before. But Star Trek and sci-fi in general has always done its best to break all sorts of boundaries, and they fought really, really hard to get this kiss going. Sarah, what about you? Talk to me about the kiss.
Kind of like Rose. I watched it when I was maybe 10, and I didn't think anything of it either because it was
Mhm.
all over TV at that point, so it wasn't a big deal. But as I became a Trekkie, I guess, and a sci-fi nerd, a sci-fi queen in training, I guess. Um, I I learned the significance of it, and then it wasn't until later. I don't even know. I think maybe 5 years ago that I found out that Lucille Ball was involved in Trek, and she had fought for this, and and fought for Nichelle to stay, and um, Nichelle had one. Is it okay to talk about this?
Oh,
Um,
yes, share that.
um, that
Absolutely.
she that Nichelle had wanted to leave, and she was ready to quit because she was fed up with it. She was tired. She just didn't want to stay. And Dr. Martin Luther King came and talked to her and told her that no, you need to stay because you are an icon for all the little girls out there, and
Yes.
we need you there. And that's why she stayed. And that's huge.
Yes, I
And
mean, to think that
Star Trek,
Martin
by the way.
Luther King, the father, if you will, of the civil rights movement in the United States, who has probably influenced civil rights movements all over the world, was a Trekkie.
Yep.
Uh, that's a huge thing for us Trekkies, okay? And to know that he influenced this woman to stay, because had she not stayed, we probably wouldn't have had the impact as people of color, and as women in television. It was the first time where a woman was in authority because she was a lieutenant.
Yeah.
Okay. She it was also, on the bridge. To be on the bridge was a very big deal. She was the only woman with an official job on the bridge. And to be a woman of color, and little girls looking at her and seeing familiarity, seeing themselves in her, just growing up, seeing her was something so special. And one thing I do remember is that there was no man who didn't look at Uhura and didn't just drool because she was beautiful. And they were able to keep that beauty and not exploit it, but just kind of keep it. And I know that people think that the short skirts was kind of like, oh, showing women's bodies. It was a movement back then in the 60s where women were being empowering themselves with how they dressed, and showing that they can wear short dresses and still be, these powerful women, that their outfits didn't define them. And Trek was all about these movements. And, we see how Trek has definitely played a part in our history as human beings. And it's when I first saw this episode, like you guys, I just saw two people kiss. I didn't understand the impact it had until I learned that this was the first interracial kiss on television. And this is the first time that you see even people getting that close physically, in any way, that were interracial. And that really set the tone, because the response that they were going to get from viewers was going to set the tone for the rest of the episodes and the rest of other television series, because they'll say, if they can do it, we can do it. And that's really what happened. It was like this domino effect. So we have to start by celebrating this moment, and the actors had no problems with it. You see the countless interviews that William Shatner has done, that Nichelle Nichols has done. It wasn't a big deal to them for them to kiss, but it was a big deal for the executives because they didn't want to offend people. But sometimes we have to offend a little to get things done, right? And I think this kiss kind of showed that. Yeah. But unless you guys have something you want to add to that, we can move on to the next image.
I'm
You can
good.
go on. All
Good to
righty.
go.
Now we have Spock and Nurse Chapel Star Trek TOS era, which I think we can all agree it's a different dynamic with the Strange New World Spock and Nurse Chapel. So we're going to start with you, Sarah. Talk to us about how you feel about this relationship, because we're going to talk about the other ones later. So let's keep us focused on Spock and
This,
Nurse Chapel.
I always
The
kind of thought that
TOS.
this was like, I don't know, it was kind of portrayed that like, because he always like had no emotions. It wasn't until later that, and in the movies that he was shown to have emotions, that he just had to keep them under wraps, but that he was emotionless, and that she loved him, but he didn't have room for that. That was kind of how I, like, she was kind of that puppy love, if that makes sense.
Yes.
That she was always pining after him, and oh, maybe if I do this, maybe he'll pay attention to me. But he was always by the books, got about business, and I ain't got time for this.
Yeah, very standoffish, right?
Yes,
Absolutely. How about you, Rose? How do you feel about their interaction in the Star Trek TOS series?
I was pretty much the same as Sarah. It seemed like she was definitely all in, really, really into Spock, and he was just kind of like, Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Like I didn't feel that he was really feeling the same sort of things and like hidden underneath. And now, like, I just don't know whether that's just how they portrayed Vulcan. That is the
Mhm.
only thing, and they had no intention of anything else ever really changing with that. But yeah, it was just kind of like, okay, she's kind of pining over him, and he's just kind of like,
Yeah,
okay,
whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
sure, I'm gonna
Exactly.
go over here now. Bye. But I like that it kind of opened the door of like for in the future of maybe potentially changing
I
things.
felt like somebody needed to give her a DVD of "He's Not That Into
Yeah, he's
You,"
just not that into
because I
you.
feel like he wasn't that into her.
Yeah.
And I feel like he had a great deal of respect, and he
Yes.
understood how hard it was for her to love him and him not to be able to reciprocate. Because I think this Spock was very much about following Vulcan tradition more than any other iteration of Spock's that we've seen.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Because we can talk about the Kelvin timeline Spock, he was a lot different,
Hmm.
and was willing to mix it up a bit. But this Spock was all about that Vulcan tradition and Vulcan way.
Trying to quash his inner human is kind of how I felt. He was like, I'm not going to portray the human at all. I'm just going to be the Vulcan.
Yes,
Pretend the human doesn't
absolutely.
exist.
Yep.
Hmm. Yes, agreed. Absolutely agreed. This to me is, if I were to rate this particular romance, it almost goes in line with the Kirk and Uhura, right? This alien race had forced them to kiss. And I feel like this was kind of forced the Spock and the Chapel. Like they had to bring on this forbidden love kind of mantra into the series, and they brought these two in, and it kind of lacked any synergy there for
Well,
me.
is it to me in that point it was kind of like they can't have a nurse like who's independent and not tied to a man or not pining for a man.
Hmm.
And I think that speaks more to the times and the way things were then
Oh
than
yeah, because this was in the
the Star Trek
60s.
ideals because, like you already said, Uhura being on the bridge, and when you were talking about that, I was thinking about that like she was on there, but all the other women that came on the bridge were basically secretaries. I mean, they were
Yeah,
yeomen and bringing papers and clipboards and stuff to be signed, and it's that was there weren't women in power. They were secretaries, cooks, moms, wives, nurses. They didn't have positions of power. And
exactly.
I think that maybe this is going to sound dumb, but to kind of like dumb down her role a little bit, they gave her this instead of her having too much power as, a nurse in sick bay and being
Yeah,
efficient in her
yeah,
job. Well, let's give you an unrequited love so that you're
yeah.
lovesick all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
mean, originally the actress was supposed to play first officer with
right,
Pike,
yep,
but they couldn't sell that pilot, and the executive said this is not believable. No one is going to take orders from a woman. And if you see the pilot, even in the pilot, they have Pike talk about, I got to get used to a woman on the bridge. It's the future. How are you still saying that?
Yeah.
But this is how they thought in
Yeah.
the 60s, and they kind of
yeah,
brought that on to there. But when they recast it and they put her as a nurse, they felt it was more palatable.
hmm,
And what people don't understand is by doing that, um, uh, Gene Roddenberry and Lucille Ball said, "Oh, okay, we're going to take the woman off as the first officer, but then we're going to put a black woman on the bridge."
hmm,
And their heads kind of spin because they didn't think they could find someone who could play that part. And in comes the amazing Nichelle Nichols,
Yeah.
who blew them away. And you can't say no to her, you know? But yeah, I think that it's hard for us from our generations to see this romance and see her be so love struck, because that is not something that we would be a part of. But in that time, a woman being love struck was a common theme that was being presented in the media.
Every man's dream.
Yeah,
We have this
exactly.
character and she's a lady, and what else could she do? Ooh, she's got to fall in love with someone.
Yes,
Yes, that's what
exactly.
she needs.
or,
Mm-hmm.
or, or get married and have kids, or
Yeah,
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah,
got to
Yep.
find a man and settle down. No more space exploring.
Ex- exactly. Exactly.
gotta chase the
And
man
it's
across the galaxy because he doesn't want.
hmm. It's so true, so true. But then, we'll move on to our next one. We come now to Star Trek: The Next Generation. This is O'Brien and Keiko, the first wedding in Star Trek: The Next Generation that takes place. Um, I love these two, but we're going to start with Rose and then we'll go to Sarah and then I'll tell you why I love them. So, Rose, you don't got to love them, but tell me you love them.
I love them. No, I love Miles and Keiko. I love that they talk things out and they liked working with each other, and like look at their wedding. Like he's got the traditional Starfleet garb, but she's in, I
Hmm.
guess, what a Star Trek traditional view of her culture is and everything, and they're melding together and they're working together, and that Keiko still has career and she does things,
Yes.
and like they butt heads but they figure it out. It seemed like kind of a normal proper family relationship that you could see,
Hmm.
and you didn't get a lot of that on starships out there and everything, but I liked that she had a spot and that they just felt more real.
Yes. That's what I liked about them too. Absolutely. Sarah, how about you?
Oh, I love them. I love them here, and I love them on DS9. I to me, they were more of a like actually a real couple and not an ideal couple, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
because they did argue and they had fights and they, went out storming out of the room, and we'll come back and talk about it later. Or, I gotta leave the ship for 6 months. I'll be back because
Yeah.
I can't deal with you. You know, and that's sometimes you need a break. And
Yeah.
but they still worked through their stuff and made it work.
Yeah.
And that's what's important is putting the work in and showing that not only can love happen on a starship and it's not not like North Chapel and Spock, but like they actually, met and courted and fell in love on the ship and had a wedding and had kids. And it was it was more natural, I
Yes,
thought.
absolutely. I also like the fact that I felt personally he was a good husband. I felt personally he was a good father, with, with imperfections in both areas. But that's what we are. We are imperfect human beings. So to expect someone to be the perfect something is it's unrealistic and it's unhealthy. So I
Yeah.
love the fact that they made him imperfect. That she gives, what people need to understand is she's highly educated. She is a
Hmm.
botanist. He is not as educated as she is, but she is willing to make these adjustments so that his career can flourish. And he realizes the sacrifice that she has made, and it is trying to like create an arboretum, and he seeks help. He seeks advice from the captain. He seeks advice from his friend to see what it is that they can do to help Keiko adjust because she was having this difficult time adjusting to this environment. She went from the flagship of the starships to Deep Space Nine when it was at its worst. And
Yeah.
I think that he was very, very much aware of her struggle. And I love that they made that quite a few episodes. They gave her a different path, right? They made her into a teacher and she was able to do that for a while. But when that was no longer something that she can do, he was okay with her like, you got to go to Bajor and help with the botany and the plants. You do that, get the seeds going, help the people. We're both working for Bajor, and
Follow your
this was,
passion still.
yes, exactly. And he filled his time, with Bashir in the holodeck fighting monsters. But I think it was his way of saying, I miss her. And if I don't do this, I'm going to miss her too much. And I need not to miss her this much. I thought that that relationship was so healthy. I thought he was such a good dad with the children. And he really was attentive. And I really love that. And I love the fact that he did know the difference between his wife and an alien being taken over her. I really love that. But let's go on to our next couple. Oh, how much do we love Riker and Deanna?
Yes.
Sarah, talk to me about the Riker and Deanna love triangle.
Um, I love them, but I also read the books and like I got all their backstory and all their when they were teenagers on Bajor and he was an ensign and all that. And it was because when they first come on the show and like they act like they're like exes and you're like what's going on here, um
Yeah,
and then but no, but we can't and on again, off again, on again, off again. And, sometimes that's how it is. Also, another real relationship. Sometimes that's how it is. You need a break. You get fed up with somebody. You need a break. Let me go try something else. You know, that old saying, if you love something, let it go. If it comes back, it was yours. If it doesn't, it was never yours to begin with. You know,
exactly.
and I think they're cute and a working couple, but I still think that they have their struggles and but they still talk about it. I mean, we got to experience that in Picard's film. You
Yeah,
know how they were dealing with the loss of their child, and it was a struggle. And I can't, I just I like them. Um, as they're not the perfect couple, but they're a good couple. They're good together. I'll leave it at that.
exactly. How about you, Rose? What do you get from for these
I'm
two?
the same. I was intrigued when, the show first started, and it's like, oh, okay, there's something there. And that you slowly got more parts of it through the series. I also read Imzadi. It's one of my favorite books. I had the audiobook of Imzadi on cassette tape and wore it
Such a
out.
good book. If you
It was
haven't
so
read
good. And
it,
Jonathan
guys,
Frakes read it.
yes.
It was,
Oh,
oh yeah,
I might find that.
he
Okay.
Yeah,
has a Deanna voice and everything. It's great. But it just that really added to the whole backstory of them reading that novel there. And then we get it, and like there was a heartbreak of like, oh, like I really think they'd be good together, but like clearly they're not in the right place. And again, yeah, it
hmm
kind of mirrors more of a sometimes real life, like you clearly love each other. You
yes.
clearly like you have that, but the
hmm
timing just there's things going on and it's just not working out, and touch point and you back off again, and then in the end everything kind of finally fell into place, and they still have their struggles. They still have things that are trying to tear them apart and things happening, but they still, even when they're totally frustrated and just sick of the shenanigans of the other one, that they will still ultimately come together, talk it out, and work it out between them, and I just love it.
My,
I love these two together. Go ahead, Sarah. I'm sorry.
no, it's okay. I was just gonna butt in that I really enjoyed the comicality of throwing warp into it and then like, bringing it up and like throwing it into each other's faces. And I just because of the relationship with Worf and Deanna, and then
Yeah.
Riker like he likes me better. I just mm, I just thought that was it could have been, bitter or sad, but they turned it into comedy, and I kind of like that.
Yes. They're
Oh,
also
I love
friends.
those two. Yes, I love the fact that they developed this friendship, right? Because they do give you the impression in that very first episode in Star Trek TNG that they had a relationship, and that's why they're feeling a little bit awkward. But they developed this friendship that goes on for years, and I love the fact that the writers waited for TNT to literally just be almost over for to bring them together, because I mean, they didn't even get married until the movies, right? So it was really good, because I feel like it gives you that lesson that, the best romances are based in friendship, and they had that friendship. They really do understand and complement each other very, very well. I think that Hit Riker's personality wouldn't work with anybody but a Beta Z, first of all. I think that it just wouldn't. you know? Um, but let's go on to our next couple, which is Deanna and Worf, of course. So Sarah, you mentioned Deanna and Worf. So is this what did you think of this?
I thought it was a. I thought they made a cute couple, and I think that they were what they needed at the time. But I don't think that they were destined for the long run, just because they both had bigger and better things for themselves planned, and you know what I mean. I think they were good while they were good, but then okay, maybe it's time to go.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay, so we have a comment here from Claudia. How are you, darling? It says here, I like Tanner Worth in the alt universe. Agreed. I definitely like them in the alternative universe, when he was looping back and forth.
Mhm.
And I thought that worked, but I didn't necessarily think that TNG regular universe Deanna and Worf was such a match. I felt like he is by nature rough and tough, and even in romance. Um, and I don't know that she had the constitution for it, but I could be wrong. What do you think, Rose?
I I think that again, they were okay for the time being. They came together, they learned some lessons being with each other, but I feel like it felt like Deanna was more counselor to him and trying to help him work through his stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and that she was trying to help him because she did genuinely care for him and everything,
Yeah.
but I don't think it was the kind of help that he needed. He needed someone who understood more of his culture from who he
Yes.
is, but he's kind of detached from because of not growing up actually in the culture. And I don't think
Agreed.
that it was like a good romantic partner mesh necessarily. I think that more close friends to like push each other. But yeah, it was a temporary good meeting of the, friends, people together, but definitely not end game. And I think that Worf's next relationship was much better suited.
Yeah,
And we're going to talk about that one. So let's move on to the next one. Um, and that's Crusher and Picard. So, Sarah, Crusher and Picard, talk to me.
um, I always kind of felt like maybe she was court because Jack and Picard were friends. That like maybe it was like the three of them palling around, and they both loved her, but she had to pick, and but then he died, so it's like it's not like swoop in and I'm gonna be here, but also they still have that friendship. But I
Yes.
also and later on, and especially what she did with was it Jack? I think it's Jack. Um, with her son and not telling anyone and not telling Picard. I mean, that's a big decision, but also she didn't want him to be raised under that shadow, and so that
Exactly.
he could be his own man before he got there.
Mm.
And I understand that too. I just I kind of didn't like him in TOS. I did like him in Picard, coming together at the end. it seemed more like they were friends than anything else, and
Agreed.
not
I
this
never got the
this unrequited love type thing.
yes,
Just
I never got
friends.
that kind of chemistry from them. I never really felt like there was this lingering romance. It was more to me like, oh, he's my, boyfriend's hot friend, but he's off limits because I'm not going to cheat on my boyfriend kind of situation. But
Yeah,
he's the kind of guy you're never really going to ever have a real commitment from. So you're going to stay away from it anyway. Like I
yeah.
just felt like there was just off about that. And I felt like it was being pushed on the viewers, this, possible romance
Picard is
for
kind of
Picard.
married to his career and doesn't really have time. I mean, he had several relationships throughout the show, but he also, the career always came first. So, I mean, I just, I didn't feel that, while it was nice to see him happy, I don't think that that was a good choice for the character.
Mm-mm.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Now, how about you, Rose? What do you think?
I was the opposite. I loved those two together.
Really?
I did growing up. I loved it. And granted, I was very young, but I liked they knew each other from before. They had the shared friend, husband dying. It took them apart, the coming back together, and just it to me, it felt like a deep love for each other, but with him being the type of person he is and being married to the job and being so damn afraid of loving other people and everything like that,
Yes.
that knowing that it was probably never going to work out, but they still had that deep friendship and love undercurrent of everything. And I think that's why they
Mm-hmm.
kind of kept coming back together, and like maybe something's going, oh no, he's doing the same thing as usual. And then when she made the decision, when she found out she was pregnant, to leave, I think it was like, oh my God, yeah. Like all of
You
this
know
stuff,
how
everybody comes for him.
the now that you say that, what always seemed in retrospect, now looking back at TNG, he always gave the vibe of a man who had been hurt in love and never got over it, so he's got all these walls. But
What if it
I
was?
don't think that's what Picard's problem was. I think he just didn't want to be committed because he
I
put
think it all just
Starfleet
scared him.
first.
I think it
Yeah.
all just scared him with the losing his parents and everything, just with the
Hmm.
whole thing. I think he was terrified of letting anyone in close and having
Yeah.
that. And no matter what he felt, he was like, nope, nope, we're not going there. Not doing that. Can't do that. Bad things happen when I get close to people and when I love them. So just can't do it. So I can see that ultimately
Exactly.
in the end that like they weren't going to work out, but I feel like they did have that deep undercurrent of trust and love and friendship with them, but that with him being who he is, and she's like
Yeah.
eventually, yeah, no, I can't keep doing this.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, they were
Completely
friends with
agree.
benefits because we wouldn't have got
Clearly they
Jack
got to that point at one time at least.
at least once.
That's so true. That's so true. But let's go on to our next one because we have quite a few romances in Star Trek to talk about. And that is my favorite, Cassidy Yates and Captain Cisco. Is it because I'm madly in love with Avery Brooks? It is possible that that's it. But we're going to start with Sarah because I can go on forever talking about Avery Brooks. Hmm.
Unpopular opinion: I did not like Cassidy. Um, I did. It just she rubbed me raw. Like it just she's doing. I mean, I don't know. I don't know
Is it
how to.
because she worked with the Maquis? What's
No,
happening
that
here?
didn't bother me. It was just that knowing that he's a captain and still putting him in a position that can get him in trouble and kind of she just seemed selfish to me. I think that's what it was. Is that what she wanted was what she wanted, and maybe that's we need powerful women that get what they want. But I didn't like her. I think that they worked in the end, but I did not like her.
Really? I have never known anyone not to like Cassidy Yates. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Sarah's last day as a sci-fi queen. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. She will be a sci-fi queen forever. You're stuck with us here. No, no, no. We
I
welcome
know.
all thoughts and opinions here. um, but Rose, what about you? What do you think?
I remember when I first saw Cassidy, I was kind of like, okay, she's, this badass and like, how is this going to work? But in the end, I loved them together. I liked that she pushed him a little bit more because he's like, I think most Starfleet captains, he's still, no, like, this is how it's going to go and you can't do that. And she was just like, nope.
Exactly. Yep. I think he was a strong personality.
Absolutely. And I
And
think
I
he
think
needed a
she
strong
needed a
personality.
strong
Yes.
person with him,
Yeah.
uh, and someone who understood
Yeah.
his relationship with the Bajorans and his position as emissary and as captain being separate but together at the same time. I think that's definitely important. I thought they worked well. What I liked about one of the many things I liked about Captain Cisco is how deeply in love he was when he was in love. He deeply loved his wife, where he was willing to risk his own life to save her. And you see that in the beginning. Uh, but his love for his son, it made him understand he had to survive because she wasn't. She was gone. And I think that, when he fell in love with Cassidy, he didn't really want to meet Cassidy. But
Hmm.
his son knew what his father needed more than what he knew needed, and he respected his son enough to say, okay, you know what, I'm gonna give this a chance. I'm gonna see what it is you see in her.
Yeah.
And I think that, they had a lot of things in common. They're both strong-willed. They both were people, of authority, of command. And I think that this kind of shined there so much in that relationship. And I really love the way they communicated with one another, you know?
I love that
And
we got to
yeah,
see Cisco as a dad and really coming into his own and being there. And I loved Jake and his relationship. And I love that they didn't bring Cassidy in until a little bit later when we had the time to get
yes.
to know them. And that,
Hmm.
here's this other person coming in and like, how's this going to work and everything. And then
Yeah.
finally, in the end of like the accepted, family and all of that, like, I really enjoyed that.
Oh, absolutely. We have a comment here for Rose. And you are very welcome here anytime you would
Hey,
like.
Dusty.
Astrometrics. He says, so excited Rose brought me here. Love this discussion. We're loving it too, brother. We are loving it too. So let's move on to our next romance. Odo and Kira. Rose, you first, Sarah, you next, and I'm not sure. I'm a popular opinion. So I will keep mine last. Rose, go ahead. Talk to me.
I remember wondering how it was going to work at first and whether I felt like it was a good pairing. I was definitely a little bit iffy at first. I wasn't sure if it was going to work, but in the end, I did kind of enjoy seeing them together and them discussing things and, just kind of how they worked stuff out and everything like that. Because here he is, Mr. Serious, officer of the law, and she's just like, yeah, no, I'm gonna go what needs to be done and everything. So I thought that was an interesting dynamic that they brought into play with it there.
Okay. Sarah?
I wasn't the. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of this relationship. It kind of
Ooh,
seems forced,
me
kind of
neither.
like, kind, kind of like the Nurse Chaplain Spock. It's like he's pining after her, and just he was a lovesick puppy for so much of the show. It just was kind of like, oh, this is annoying, and
Yeah,
I don't know if that makes sense. But that's kind of how I
perfect
feel about it.
sense.
I don't mean I don't have a lot to say, and I don't want to be mean, so I'm done.
But for me, the problem with this was just that she was very, very religious. And in her past relationship, she sought the approval of the I forgot what they call them.
Prophet.
The prophets, thank you. And she left her last relationship before this because the prophets guided her in saying that their paths were separate. Um, there was no mention of the prophets here. There was no mention of guidance. I felt like, well, how do you go from today being super religious to turning around completely, and kind of removing that from her arc? Because that was something that I always loved about her, is that she was able to balance her faith, and her career, and bringing in, this federation into the mix, and she was able to balance it better than she thought. And in the beginning she was trepidatious about all of these things, but she brought this in, and there was a lot of things about Odo that we learned along the way, things he did, things he was a part of, that Kira might have been able to forgive him and be friends with, but the Kira that we know, to start a relationship with him, it didn't work for me. I just didn't see how she went, because really, you know, the relationship just, it didn't have, it didn't work for me. I thought that they were really going to do something with her in her prior relationship. He was, the head of the Bajor, and she's in charge of the space station, and I thought they were going to go somewhere with that. And I felt like they kind of brought this intense romance really sudden for us. I don't know. What do you
I
guys
have a
think?
comment I want to put up.
Absolutely.
Yes, I
It
was
said
just going to say I agree with
I
Dusty
thought
here.
this helped Odo's story over Kira's, and that's
Yeah.
absolutely right.
It did. It
Yeah.
absolutely did, which for me was a problem, because I felt that these were two storylines that, although intertwined, they were separate.
Yeah, they should have been. I think they should have stayed friends and not crossed out.
Yes, not every friendship needs to end up in a romance, people. But let's go on to it. Go on to our next one. My favorite, Warfare Jatia. Yes, absolutely yes. That dress is a dress, I was telling Rose that I wish I was skinny enough to fit into it and wear it every day, just because it's gorgeous. I would wear it on a daily basis, every day, headpiece and all. Do my job, working from home, dressed like that. Absolutely. Rose, talk to me about Worf and Jadzia.
I loved these two together. I thought that they were such a better match than Worf with
Mm-hmm.
Deanna. I think that Jadzia, with all of her past lives and everything, and her being so immersed in the Klingon culture and everything, that she was able to relate to him in a way that a lot of others couldn't. And she was strong enough and smart enough to not put up with any of his shit. Whenever he'd be getting too
Yes.
in his head or
Yeah,
anything, she'd just be like, "What are you doing? No, we're not doing that." And she could handle herself with him and everything. And I really liked their back and forth and their whole relationship and everything. And I think that they did more for each other than when he and Deanna were together, that it was one sided
Yeah.
there, and here it seemed like more of a meeting of equals.
yeah.
Intense chemistry. I absolutely love it. Sarah, go right ahead.
I agree with Rose. I mean that this was this of the Star Trek relationships. This, besides like Will and Deanna, this seems like the best fit to me.
Yes.
Um, because like Rose said, because of her history as Curzon and being immersed in the culture, and she could help him get in touch with his culture in a way that maybe he wasn't even able to do for himself. He needed somebody there that could be a partner and not just a fuck buddy, I guess. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
needed to be an equal, not only in bed, in the relationship, in the battlefield, in sparring. And she could kick his ass, and that's what he
Yes.
needed.
Absolutely. And I think that I agree with both of you and with what Astrometric says. He says, this fitted so well for me. Agree with everything Rose stated. Plus, she's got Klingon in there. Yeah, she absolutely does. She has this Klingon nature in her, whether it came, from her prior host or something that she embraced herself, which I think we learned later on when Ezri Dax comes in, that it really was Jadzia's
Yeah,
desire to be around the Klingon food and drinks and culture. And it was something she was embracing. It was something that was truly something that she loved. And I love the fact that she kind of was able to tame him and give him romance and sweetness, but also give him the fire and the battle that he needed as a Klingon man.
yeah,
And her understanding that, he was a Klingon raised by humans that wanted to be a part of his culture, but didn't quite understand himself what that meant. Because we never really, Worf didn't laugh too often, but Klingons laughed and have fun and were jovial people.
yeah,
But Worf Klingon, he held on to the seriousness because everything he did reflected on Klingons if you
yeah,
didn't know any other Klingon. So he was very concerned about the image and the pressure that came with. And I think that that's something that she was able to balance in him and help him kind of get balanced out and say, hey, it's okay to laugh. I've known Klingons before. And this is the way it is. And when he says something Klingon, she got it. She
yeah,
understood. And there was so much chemistry with these two actors. It was truly amazing. It was just pouring out
yeah.
onto the screen for sure. Let's go on to our next one, which is Jet, it's Bashir and Ansri Dax. What did you think of this, Rose?
It was okay. The part that really got me was Julian was puppy dog eyes for Jadzia for all of those
Mm-hmm.
years and
Yep.
trailing along behind her and little hard eyes and just like ha 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 ha. And then she dies, and I mean, I'm still devastated over that.
Yes.
Completely.
Uh, and then Esri shows up, and then he's like, "Oh well, here's my next shot." Like that's just kind of the thing, and that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. It's like, "Oh well, here's a new Dax. I guess maybe I'll try again."
Try again.
And I think that colored
Mm-hmm.
my whole perception of their relationship.
Yeah. Sarah, what do you think?
I completely agree with Rose. That's
Me
exactly what I
too.
was
Hmm.
going to say. Is that
Yeah.
the puppy dog eyes for Jedzia, and like finally he settled into, okay, well I won't chase her, but I'll still be her friend. But he still had that love for her, and then, oh, here's a new version. Let's try again. And it's just,
Yeah,
no.
it really didn't work for me either. Only because I felt like, are you chasing Dax that you didn't get, or are you really intrigued with this Ezri?
So
You
and
know?
that was something I was just thinking about with Jadzia and her Klingon culture. My wonder is if Esri was further away from Curzon because
Yeah,
Jadzia was so close to Curzon. She got so much of the Klingon culture and the Klingon, the desires for the food and the exercise and all
yeah,
that from Curzon. But then Esri is further from Curzon, so there's the buffer of Jadzia to it wasn't as strong, if that makes sense. I was just thinking about that because things pass through the symbiote, and
yeah.
it just it just seemed like mm, it. I don't know.
It
No
I
shade
just
didn't
on
it
Julian.
seem,
I love
yeah.
later seasons Julian. He is great. I just wasn't so sure
Yes.
about what the motivations were behind the writers with having him just immediately, okay, well,
I
next
think they
Dax.
wanted
That was my
to,
big
I
thing.
think they were focused on getting him a relationship by the time the
Yeah,
show ended, and they threw
yeah,
in whoever they had
yeah,
at him, which made no sense at
yeah.
all.
well,
Side note,
they
Not
Nicole
at all.
DeBoer, the actress who plays her, is the loveliest human being ever.
yes.
She is lovely.
Love her.
I've seen her in interviews. She's so lovely.
I got
I
to
think
meet her at
she's
a
a
convention in
fantastic.
the 90s. She's so nice.
Wow, she is. Oh,
She
that's
is.
wonderful.
Another
And I
Canadian.
think she's an amazing. Yes, I was gonna say she's another Canadian. She's a Canadian actress, lovely actress. I've seen her in some things. Fantastic. No shade to her. She thinks she did a great
Oh,
Esri
yeah.
Dax.
Yeah.
I mean, she had some big shoes to fill, and she filled them.
Oh
Okay,
yeah.
and then some. But the relationship did not work for me. And let's move on to Star Trek Voyager, because we've got quite a few of them tonight. Neelix and Cass, Sarah, you're looking away, therefore I pick you.
I mean, yes, he loved her, but this whole relationship gave me the ick. Um,
It's a
I,
100% ick with me too.
okay, okay, I'm glad I'm not the only one because, like, I mean, I like him and I liked her, but I didn't like them together, and
Exactly.
especially with how young she was, and then the whole short lifespan. I mean, I understand that she's got to live in her lifespan, but still, it kind of seemed like
Yeah.
he was a creepy old man. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Rose, what do
I got
you
to say
think?
Yeah, my favorite series too, Voyager. Yeah, the Neelix and Kess thing. I remember when it aired, like I was super excited for Voyager. I was anticipating it, and I remember when this all started. I was like, oh, okay, like she lives such a short lifespan, so I get it. Like she matures and everything way faster than any of us would. So like, okay, all right, I'm going to suspend disbelief a little bit. Um, I loved how much they cared for each other genuinely and
Absolutely.
wanted the
Absolutely.
best for each other. I loved that. I think my biggest problem with it is the actors that they cast had such a big age gap that I think that really bothered me
Hmm.
because she
the
was
creepy old man.
so young,
It was
so
also weird
young.
how they broke up. It was never
Yeah,
it's something I understood. Not that I was not completely ickified by this
yes.
relationship. Okay, just made
Yeah.
up a new word, people.
I
Yes,
think
I
that they were
was.
good found family, but I don't think like
Yes.
as a romantic relationship that I wish they hadn't have done that. I wish it had just been like brother sister found family sort of a thing. And
Yeah,
I didn't like
yeah.
what they did with it and then kind of, I'm going to be creepy overprotective and weirdo and then all of a sudden it's just like screw you, I'm gone. Like
I
I
mean,
got
it's also
whiplash with
very
what they were
hard
doing.
for us as humans to think of a person as a full-grown adult who's only
Yes.
1 years old
Yeah, and lived such a
or
sheltered
two.
life,
Exactly.
literally.
But I want to give you the more icks. So I'm gonna go on to our next
God.
one. Oh yes, Sarah, Rose. Let's talk about this. You go first.
Okay, as an alternate timeline, it's it still bothered me. I'll be honest. I loved Tom. I loved Cass. I didn't buy the whole, even in an
Uh-uh.
alternate timeline, that would have happened. It still was kind of like, again, it's the big age gap difference and everything. And with
Yeah.
her being so sheltered and young and naive compared to Tom, who, did this thing, kicked out of Starfleet, went to the Maquis, thrown in jail. It
Yes.
didn't seem like they would have had enough in
Any
common to
ground,
really,
any common ground to stand on at
yeah,
all,
Yeah,
for
other
the
than
most
that
absolutely.
they're
part.
on the same
But
ship. Like, yeah.
Yeah, this was a very icky alternate timeline for me as well. I felt like it didn't really work, but I think that since in this timeline they killed off Belana, did he have too many choices on a ship that you're going to live for the next 75 years? And maybe that's what he was thinking. I don't know. This
He
whole
has such a
relationship was
short
weird.
lifespan. I mean,
Yeah,
if you're planning for the
yes.
future, don't get somebody that's only going to live till be 7. I mean, come on.
exactly. Exactly.
Sorry.
But let's go on to our next one. Now, Tom and Belana, Sarah, talk to me.
I love them. Um, I thought that they had more in common than, say, Tom and Kess.
Yes.
Um, and that, they both had, the same kind of speckled background, I would say, and I think that I thought I liked them. I thought they were a good fit, but I'm not sure beyond that. Go ahead.
How about you, Rose? What do you think?
I love Tom and Balana together. They're one of my favorite
Mhm.
couples in Trek. Absolutely love them. I think that they balanced each other well, that they could be soft with each other when they needed to, but also could be headstrong and push each other. And
Yes.
again, I like that it showed that they argued, they fought, they had differences of opinion, but in the end, they could still, like, I gotta go and blow off some steam and I'll talk to you later. And then they can go calm down and come back together and talk it out and everything. And like Dusty said, that I love you moment while they're in space and
Yes.
everything.
Yes.
Oh yeah. No, I
Yeah.
absolutely love them together. I
Absolutely.
wish that we would have gotten to
Yeah.
see more, like an actual
Yes.
wedding. Would have
Yes, I
fun.
think that their relationship balanced each other out really well. They both had
Yeah.
troubles with their dads. They both had trouble with parents. They both came from,
Had trouble with
rough backgrounds. I absolutely love them together. Definitely, this relationship does not have an ick factor. However, returning to ick, we gotta talk about this ultimate timeline. The one time they give Kim a relationship that's not, gonna self
Alien
destruct.
of the week. Yeah.
Let's talk about how he saw her be born, Lennox be born, and now he's having a baby with her. Rose, talk to me about this. Rose and then Sarah.
Yeah, it's the same as the Tom and Cass. Like,
Hmm.
Cass was done so dirty. She could have had such an amazing storyline, but they didn't go
Yes.
that way. But the whole, like, oh, okay, she's going to get married, and I get it. You got one chance, like, okay, let's have a baby. But
Yeah.
then, like, best friend falls in love with best friend's daughter, and no,
Hmm.
not for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Sarah?
Mm-mm. I didn't like it. It was ick. I mean, I'm happy Harry got a relationship, but no,
Exactly.
Harry
that's
was
it.
also done so dirty.
Yeah.
Yes, agreed, agreed. Carrie and Cass could have had an amazing storyline. Even if they changed Cass the way they did, they could have given her a better storyline while she was there.
Yep.
This relationship here made no sense because he had to watch her be born. He had to hold her and go, "Hey, Tom, my best friend, your daughter's beautiful," and then marry her a
Yeah.
year or two later. It's an
This
ick
gives me
factor that I can't.
this gives me Twilight and Jacob and Renesmee vibes.
Yes.
Yes,
And that's ick too. But anyway,
that that's
um,
it.
Yep.
Astrometrics agrees with us that this is the ick.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Absolutely
But
Ratatouille and Jacob vibes here.
yes. But we need a little break from the ick and let's talk about Janeway and Chakotay. Sarah,
Yes, please.
talk to me.
I, I don't know. Maybe I just like captains to be alone. Um, I didn't like this for her. It kind of felt like she was settling and giving up on what she had at home. And I mean, yeah, you can be lonely, but I didn't like it.
Really?
Yeah.
How about you, Rose?
No,
What do
this is one of
you
my
think?
OTPs as well. Love them so
Really?
much.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
I agree with what Kate Mulgrew wanted in that she did not have a relationship while, like, during the course of the show, in that she needed to really stay strong and be the leader and get them home. But I liked, like, the clip that this is from Resolutions where it's like, okay, we're stuck here. I don't think we're getting out, and the slow working through it and like the anger.
Yes.
No, I'm finding a way out. Like, this isn't it. And then eventually, slowly after, a couple of months, like coming to the realization that maybe this is it. Maybe it isn't. So maybe I can let some of my feelings out now. And then, of course, boom, slapped in the face and go back and everything. I would have preferred through the series to have them acknowledge the feelings that they have for each other and the deep and abiding respect and love that they have, but agreeing that while they were out there, that she really just needed to compartmentalize and like just focus on keeping everyone as safe as possible and getting them home. And then what I wanted is the moment they get back to the alpha quadrant, that's just like, yes, great, okay, we're home, and now we can finally stop pushing down our feelings and everything. But I
Agreed
loved Janeway and
100%.
Chakotay together.
I
Yeah,
love the idea of that. I think that they could have slowly pursued it while they were on Voyager, privately, discreetly. And then, since the writers knew they were going to jump them in and get them home, they could have, because Voyager had a few more seasons to them, and they
yeah,
could have developed that, even bringing them home, and
mhm,
developing those relationships and kind of closing them out.
yeah,
um, I love that we see that in Prodigy, though. I absolutely do, and I think that that's beautiful.
yeah.
Now, how about Trip into Paul? Sarah, talk to me.
I liked them, and I liked them so much, and I wanted more for them. I thought they were kind of done dirty. And then, with Lower Decks and the alternate timeline to Paul, that they got their happy ending, that made me happy. Um, I just, I don't think that Enterprise was really, I mean, they were always trying to add sex and, Trip was humping everything. And I didn't, I don't know, it just didn't fit. And I thought that the way that they put them, kind of threw them together, it just didn't work out. Go ahead.
How about you, Rose?
Um, I will say I have never been able to get all the way through Enterprise. It was the most disappointing series for me. I was so excited for it, and I remember the it just felt so sexist to me, and I just remember being so mad and disgusted repeatedly throughout it that I don't think I went past season 1. I couldn't bring myself to watch it. I've tried a couple
Hmm.
more times and still can't quite do it. I loved Trip from what I saw in the seasons, and from the little bit that I know, I did not see those two getting together. I didn't understand how. I still don't because I haven't seen it. So I don't
Yeah,
really
they
have
get
anything other than my
together.
initial going weird.
They get together in a very weird way, and it didn't really work for me. I
Mm,
never felt they had any real chemistry, and didn't. And I really felt that they kind of jumped the gun here, because the idea is that Sarek and Amanda were the first Vulcan and human relationship, and to bring this in, it just felt like a betrayal. I
mm,
couldn't get past it. It was a lot. It was Enterprise was really hard to get through.
Yes, it was.
It isn't
It was.
a bad series. It's just really difficult to get through. But once
mhm.
you get past season one, it starts to get better. But yeah, I wasn't a fan of this relationship at all. It really was kind of
Yeah.
messy, you know. And
I
you
see
know
what
what?
Astrometrics says there. They went
Astrometrics,
full
yes.
Baywatch.
Yes, Ashman said
Yeah.
they were full Baywatch, meets Trek on Enterprise. You are
Yes.
absolutely right, and I think that they really did a disservice
Yes.
to everything that Trek had tried to do for women, and it was
Yeah.
just not good at
It
all.
felt like a
Um,
backpedaling, and it felt like that felt like a betrayal, and I was just like, I can't even watch this.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Then we have Discovery, Stamets and Colbert. It was Sarah. What do you think of these two lovebirds?
I love them, and I love that they were out in the open. They were there. They existed, and nobody blinked an eye. Um,
Yes.
I love that it was just normal, and
Mm,
that was more Trek than anything Trek before that. I thought just that
yes.
Discovery was so woke, but I think that it was more inclusive, but it was in a good way, and I
Yeah.
really and that they portrayed them as a married couple, like they had problems and they had arguments and they
Yeah.
hid things from each other, but they had to work it out and they had to live with each other. It wasn't just a trope, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
It seemed
absolutely.
like more
Absolutely.
more of a relationship, and that they came from
Yeah.
different backgrounds and they had to get through their shit. And I liked them, and
Oh, yeah. Me too.
I think after Hugh was lost into the mycelium network, I think that Stamets had a really, really hard time with that and then found him, but then Hugh had to find himself again afterwards. And that just meant a lot to me, that, the PTSD and the working through it, and that, you know, Stamets told him, like, whatever you need, I'm here.
Yeah.
If you need me.
Astrometric says, I love them so much. I do also hate so many things they relate to their in their relationship, but it was real. Sarah, that's so right. Yeah, I agree with you, Sarah,
Yeah.
100%. This is the most loving relationship, but it had its good times, its ups and downs. Rose, what did you think of Stamets and Colbert?
Yeah, same thing. I love them that they're there. It's not a plot point. It's just they
Yes.
exist and they're a couple and
Hmm.
they're in love. And one of my favorite scenes with them is them when they're getting ready for bed and they're just in the bathroom brushing their teeth and talking. Like it's just such
Yeah,
a
normal.
it's
A
just
normal couple thing to do.
yeah.
Yep,
Like it wasn't pigeonholed. It wasn't a plot point. It wasn't anything to be made of it. It was just here's these two people and they're in love and they're married and they're working through life in Starfleet, which is not always the easiest or most normal thing. But
yep.
I love those two.
Yes, absolutely. I absolutely love them. And then we have Michael Vernon and Booker. Well, I hate it because I love Booker, but no, I love them together. They're absolutely wonderful. What do you think, Sarah?
I like them. I think they along the lines of the captain can never be happy, um, because they always have to worry about the ship. But she kind of didn't give a shit. I mean, I liked Michael. She
She
just
broke that rule, but she broke it
yeah,
well.
yeah, and I mean, I didn't like what they did to him, and how he betrayed her and all that stuff. I didn't like that arc, but I liked that they came back around
Yes,
and we're fixing it
absolutely.
at the end there. So
Absolutely. What do you think, Rose, of this relationship? I think Rose might be a little bit frozen. We're gonna give her a minute.
I
So we're
like
gonna.
them. It took me
Oh,
a
there
while
you
to come
go.
around to him.
Yeah.
okay,
Uh-oh.
No, no, you're good now. You're good now.
Eh,
good. Go
okay.
ahead.
It took me a while to come around to him because I really quite enjoyed Michael and Ash Tyler.
Yes.
So it was a little bit like, oh, I was really hoping that like something might explain, like they might be able to talk to each other again or something. It just felt like it was so abruptly like, hey, I'm going, okay, I'm staying, okay, bye. But I really liked those two together. So it took me a while to kind of get into this one here. I do like it. Yeah, I don't like some of the plot points again. And it felt really like, oh, really? But again, it was a pretty real relationship with two very different people into very different circumstances. Again, Starfleet and non-Starfleet and everything, and trying to work
Yeah.
around that. But having
Yes.
the willingness to talk it out and to work things through.
Yes, absolutely agree with both of you on this. This relationship was absolutely well done, I think. I think they gave them the ups and downs that they needed, uh, but at the end gave them success. And now we have to talk about Lower Decks. Bashir and Gareth. This is so wonderful that Lower Decks took this idea that was something that the actor that played Gareth had presented to the writers to make the Bashir and Gareth a relationship. and they rejected that at the time, but they were able to bring back that idea in Lower Decks. So, Sarah, what do you think of this?
I loved it. I am a huge member of the Star Trek shitposting community. I mean, I follow all their stuff, and this is a big trope in there, that they're together, and that's how
Hmm.
it's always been, and that's how it always should be. So this is the relationship that I think Bashir needed. Um,
Yes.
Not Esri, that this was the one, because they play so well
Yes.
off of each other, and they give each other shit, and they flirt, and they're funny, and I loved it.
Absolutely. How about you, Rose?
I have been a Garashir stan from the very first episode where they met. That was undeniable.
I thought that's where they were going
In your
to.
face flirting,
Yeah,
that's where I thought it was going, and I was here for it.
Yes.
And I was so bummed when it just never really panned out. And I know that Andy Robinson, that's the way he was playing it, and that they were cool with it. And, half the staff at least was all for it, but the higher ups again are like, no, can't do that.
they were, but it was also at the time they weren't ready for that.
Yes. I think by
All
the
these
end of
other
the
shows.
series, they could have gotten to that point, and like the fan
But
base
you
would have been
see,
like, hell
I
yes.
gotta say something contradictory about the statement. People weren't ready for that. They weren't ready for a black woman to kiss a white
Hmm.
man on TV. But if you
Either,
throw it
right?
in their face, you're just gonna
You
have
have
to
a,
live with it. Now
right.
it's part of your reality. You got to deal with it. And I think that if they would have just allowed that to happen, it would have
Yeah,
become a part of the reality of
Yeah.
it, and it would have
it would
opened
have been
doors a lot
natural.
sooner.
I think
Exactly,
it
Yeah,
was just
because
the powers that
mhm,
be weren't ready for it. They were like, no, no,
that's
they
no, no, no,
weren't
no, no,
not
ready.
no,
not
no.
The
us.
rest of us
Not,
were okay with it.
I'm not saying that we weren't ready for it. I'm
Oh
saying that
no,
the
no,
money
yeah,
the money
hmm,
people weren't ready for
Yeah.
that.
We were
yeah,
sitting there going, give me more.
and they were
Yeah,
thinking, oh no, if we're not ready, no one else is. Well, you don't speak for everyone because we all
Yeah.
wanted that. Because I thought that's what they were going for sure.
yeah.
Hmm.
We can't talk about lower deck relationships without Mariner and Jen. How cute are they together? I kind of wanted to see them flourish together. Was kind of sad when they broke up, but I thought they were so good together. They really balanced each other out. What do you think, Sarah?
I I think that they were fun and flirtatious, but I don't think that it was going to go anywhere. Kind of along the lines that, um, I don't know why I feel this way, but I kind of feel like captains need to be single because they need to be like, I know that sounds dumb, but they need to have their focus on their crew and the task and everything, and that sometimes if you throw a relationship into it, then it's too much. Like Mariner's mom, they're not together on the same ship. They see each other on shore leave, and that's it, and communicate whatever. But they're not actively married together right here in your face. And these two, it was just fun and flirtatious. And I agree with Astrometrics. It was hilarious when they broke up, and she's
Absolutely
like,
agree
I'm
with
trying
him.
to break up with
Hmm.
you. I'm trying to break up with you, and it's like, no, I was breaking up with you because like I needed us to be done, but I needed you to do it. I just,
Yep,
it's
yep,
kind of like
absolutely.
when girls get together. Sometimes it's like you jump right in, and it's like first date, second date's a U-Haul. That's the joke. That that's when I was dating a girl. My dad asked me when you get in the U-Haul. I'm like, what? And he's like, don't lesbians like moving together on a second date? And I'm like,
Yes,
no.
exactly.
Um, and I'm glad that we didn't see that. That it was just fun and flirtatious, and they were with their friends, and they had a good time. But then they went their separate ways, and
Exactly.
that was more natural and not
And
a forced trope. Anyways, that's
what
my
do
opinion.
you think, Rose?
I think that they were hilarious together. I enjoyed the time that they were, and just the sassiness and the comebacks and all of that, and how they broke up, just like ghosting broke up and then it comes back again later, and everything was hilarious, and I enjoyed it. Again, I don't think necessarily long-term partners, but I enjoyed the time that they had together.
Absolutely. So let's go on to our next one, which is Strange New World Spock and Nurse Chapel. So, Sarah, you're going to take this one first. Really quickly tell me, what do you think of
I stand
this
them.
one?
I want them together so badly.
Me too.
Um, I mean, I
Mhm.
think that the original Spock and Chapel had to walk so these two can run.
Yeah,
And I really like how they're doing this and how they're portraying Spock and allowing him growth, I guess. And I mean, getting to see Spock in Discovery with his sister and all that, that was awesome too. And maybe because of that, now we have this.
exactly.
Because because
How about you, Rose? What do you think?
I really enjoyed them together too. I like that he was kind of more willing to explore a little bit of his humanity with her and everything. And I think that they could have done more with it than what they have done to kind of immediately turn it to the, oh, this is the turning point and why he goes so hardcore into only showing his Vulcan side and everything. I think that there could be a really neat, interesting dynamic between these two and T'Pring, and trying to work everything out there, and that they could both be people to help him kind of bring together both sides and all that sort of stuff. But I mean, I've really enjoyed it. I think they play well off of each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And our final, Spock and T'Pring. Since you started talking about her, Rose, why don't you tell us what you think of these two?
You know, at first, T'Pring seems so proper and just excellent Vulcan, and you're kind of like, oh, you're a little bit too stodgy, and then you get to know her a little bit more, and you know that she's just as sick of all of this stuff as Spock is. She just hides it a little bit better. But, you know, she can't stand her mother's meddling and everything like that, and just wants to break free. And I don't know how much she really wanted to be with Spock. So I can see why they would break up. But I hope that this is just a platform for her to find out who she is and be more true to herself. But her outfits were freaking amazing. I loved every
Yes,
single one of them.
absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely. The outfits rock.
queen behavior with
Hmm.
all of her clothing. I loved it, and
Yeah.
I want some. I can't fit any
I
of them,
kind
but I
of
love
want
them.
them to do a repeat of the original Spock and Trepang wedding where she chooses someone to fight for him because she didn't really want him. I kind of hoping that they do their version of that
It would have been
with them.
interesting.
That would be interesting if they can do that. What do you think of Spock and T'Pring, Sarah?
I think Rose was right that she was very stodgy and uptight, and I didn't like her. She's very snooty and just like, oh God. My first thoughts were like, oh God, this bitch, God. But 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 she grew on me. Um,
Yes.
and that she's just as, like Rose said, she's just as sick of their shit as he is, and that why can't they just let us be and let us
Yeah,
do our own thing and go from there? And I'm
absolutely.
hopeful to see that we get to see her again, maybe in a different capacity, see how she can grow, and see where we can go from there.
Yes.
Absolutely. But we are going to go into our next segment quickly to the real science queen. Take it away, Sarah.
Dr. Ashanti Johnson is one of the first Black women oceanographers and was the first African American to receive a doctoral degree in chemical oceanography from Texas A&M. Her research specializes in aquatic radiogeochemistry and focuses on identifying biogeochemical indicators to understand the impact of past events on marine and freshwater environments in the Arctic. Her initial interest in oceanography and marine biology began at a young age while watching Jacques Cousteau on television, and was strengthened during an opportunity to interact with a female marine biology graduate student. She then went on to receive her PhD in oceanography from Texas A&M University in 1999. She still cherishes the childhood memories that jump-started her college and professional careers. She is known to frequently share her interest in the ocean with children, teachers, community leaders, college students, and federal government officials. She is an international STEM expert, highly accredited speaker, and author profiled in a variety of textbooks and various other publications. Dr. Johnson engages in scientific research as well as the education, mentoring, and professional development of students, university faculty, and early career professionals. Her areas of expertise include oceanography, aquatic and environmental scientists, STEM diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice, the the DEIJ, faculty recruitment and diversity workplace and career empowerment, student academic and career readiness strategies, institutional change, organizational leadership, and advanced convocations. Dr. Johnson's over 20 years of senior leadership experience in university, national, and state nonprofit and K-12 organizations includes serving as University of Texas at Arlington Assistant Vice Provost for Faculty Recruitment and Diversity, Special Assistant to the President, STEM Initiatives at Morris Brown College, and most recently, the founding CEO Superintendent of a statewide STEAM charter school system, among many other leadership roles in STEM based education. And that's like Leah's school. Um,
Yes.
hold on, it scrolled on me. She's also a strong advocate and researcher of professional development and STEM opportunities for underserved communities, which earned her the PAESMEM Award in 2010, which is a presidential award for excellence in science, mathematics, and engineering. She also leads the MSPHD's Institute, the minorities striving and pursuing higher degrees of success in earth science systems. Ashanti Johnson is a recipient of the 2019 Sigma Pi John P. McGovern Science and Society Award. The McGovern Award has recognized achievements by a scientist or engineer that transcends their career as a researcher. Recipients of this award represent a broad spectrum of individuals whose varied actions supported research, the communication of science, and the impact of science on society. Most recently, she received the prestigious American Geophysical Union Excellence in Geophysical Education Award, the AGU Ambassador Award, and was recognized as an AGU Fellow. Dr. Johnson's contributions to the global community include guidance regarding STEM initiatives and future opportunities to government agencies, universities, international conferences, and K-12 organizations in the U.S., Samoa, Fiji, the Cook Islands, Cambodia, Brazil, Spain, China, and Mexico.
Wow. She
Amazing.
is
Yeah.
amazing. But we're going to go right into our next segment, which is sci-fi book recommendation. I am so excited to bring you book two. As you know, I'm going to be reviewing, this is a trilogy, the Bindi trilogy. This is book two called Home. It is the second book in the Bindi trilogy written by Neti Okorafor. Please forgive me if I mispronounce your name. In this second book, she goes home back to Earth to face her family and the elders after being the first of her tribe to be away for a whole year on an off-world university called the Umza University. She comes back in the spaceship where she had faced some really big atrocities, and her whole entire um, uh, class was murdered in this spaceship, and she was the only survivor. So she's struggling with this PTSD, with the trauma of what happened, and she's dealing with that, as well as struggling with that predictable bouts of anger she's getting. And she decides to compete in the traditional Himba pilgrimage, so she can feel cleansed of all this trauma in her life. Bindi's Medusa friend, Akwu, comes to Earth with her as an ambassador to his people. The pair must travel to the third fish, the ship where Bindi survived the traumatic event, and they're going through it together. And Okwu doesn't realize how difficult it is for humans to get through trauma. They can put it past them real quickly, and Ogwe is learning about humans and vice versa. And this, even though it's a space odyssey, is beautiful because it's talking about family relationships. You see her struggle and her growth. And it's really amazing. And I can't wait to start book 3 to see how this goes. Now, I told you I would bring you a tidbit of a fact about the author every week. Last week, we learned that she was born in Cincinnati, Ohio in 1974. She has a PhD in English from the University of Illinois in Chicago. And this week, we're learning that she has written 19 book series.
That's amazing.
Okay, very amazing. Now, I'm doing the audiobook. And because we're honoring Black women for Black History Month, I wanted to touch on the narrator. Her name is Robin Miles. She is an African American actress, an audiobook narrator who reads the Bindi trilogies by Nidi Okorafor. I have to learn how to say her name. It's beautiful, but I know I'm saying it wrong. I'm so sorry. She has a master's of fine arts in drama from the School of Yale School of Drama. She has narrated a wide range of genres, including children's book, nonfiction, sci-fi, fantasy, horror, historical fiction, biographies, and other genres as well. She narrates so beautifully. She actually comes from immigrant parents from Africa, and you can just, she uses the accent that she grew up listening to, and it is so beautiful. And since the main character is from Africa, it really feels like you're listening to Bindi, and it's really beautiful. But we're going to quickly go into our next segment because I don't want to miss it. I have new podcasts to recommend, and they are a predominantly African American. And in honor of Black History, I do want to promote them. Okay, so we have Mel's Rebellion. She is an author and a vlogger, and she does these amazing podcasts and on Star Trek and science fiction. She brings us this new twist to it. Guys, you should go to her YouTube channel, subscribe, listen to a few of her um, uh, videos there. You're going to have a great time with Mel's Rebellion. And we also have Thriddle and Verse. She focuses on reviewing sci-fi books by Black authors. She brings the authors, she interviews them, she reviews the books. She is so much fun to listen to, guys. And if you're looking for Black sci-fi authors, check out her channel. She'll definitely have some recommendations for you. And it'll be so much fun to, for to watch her. She is so great, so articulate. Definitely go and check her out. Now, we're coming to our close. So I wanted to announce that our next episode will be on February 21st at 9 p.m., where we're going to close off the Black History Month celebration. We're going to have our last celebration, and we're going to bring you a lot of fun stuff and information. So we're going to talk sci-fi movies, sci-fi scientists, sci-fi book authors, and we're just going to learn about more things about Black History Month, and it's going to be lots of fun. So make sure you tune in on February 21st, Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Rose, thank you so much for coming on again and for being here, a part of us. You know, you are always welcome in the Sci-Fi Queens.
Thank you for inviting me again. It's always a joy.
Oh, no worries. If you have any announcements that you want to share, let
I
us
wish
know.
I did. I'm going back to work soon, working more, so I'm gonna have less time to make videos, but I'll
I
still
totally
try.
understand. I understand completely. But thank you guys for being here tonight. Thank you, Sarah, for that amazing scientist that you brought. That was just excellent. And let's continue to celebrate Black History Month and learn more about this part of our history, okay? But good night, guys, and thank you for joining
Good
us.
night.
Thank you for watching the Sci-Fi Queens, and be sure to support us on all our social medias and check out our website